Welcome to Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman. We crack the code so you don't have to.
Welcome to the Business Decoded podcast. I'm here with another dear friend that I met through mutual friends. We've been at a few events together. Morgan Johnston. Morgan, welcome.
Ronnie, thanks so much for having me. This is wonderful. I'm excited to be here.
Now, you came straight from the airport almost and landed here just for this. I know your flight was delayed and traveling gets tricky these days.
It does. And I'm on the road a lot with my job. And yes, I flew in straight from DC. So
I like it. And now this is a great time of year to travel, but there are always weather conditions that you just aren't sure what's taking place. So I'm glad that you made it. You're the founder and CEO of Eques Advisory Group.
Yes, I am. I started my business just a couple of months ago. I've had a long career working in politics and specifically in political fundraising. And a couple months ago, I decided that it was time and I wanted to go off on my own to start my own business.
So you're going to have to tell me more. And as a business podcast, we don't necessarily talk a lot about politics specifically. We're not a political show, but I've had people that are in the business of politics that I thought was so useful for other people to learn about, especially businesses. I think sometimes people try to completely separate governance and policy and politics from business, and they're all interrelated from the taxes to regulations and et cetera. But no, I met you and I thought you're doing something really, really special from a business perspective. You're young, you're energized, you're creative in what you're developing from a business perspective. I've heard about some of the partnerships that you're making and the influence that you're already having. I thought I have to meet Morgan on the program and bring her on to talk about it. So I'm glad you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here. It's been a very exciting couple of months. I really only started my business back in, LLC began in October. So
wow.
It's been very recent, but I've already had so many people come to me wanting to be clients of mine and so many people recommending me as well. I've had to actually turn down candidates that I can't take on. So it's been very successful. It's a very good feeling when you go off on your own to have a lot of people who vouch for you and want to work with you. But the business of politics in general, no matter where you land on things, it dictates everything we do from, how great it is to live, work, raise a family, start a business in your state. I mean, It really does. It is very interconnected with life and there is hardly a way to really separate it. So I think that business and, politics also is becoming more and more expensive as we go through things. So it's all very interconnected.
Now, what inspired you to go off on your own and create your business?
Well, I took a risk. Back in January of last year, I left a job that I absolutely adored. It was a wonderful job in politics. And I took a risk. The job did not work out and I tore my ACL and I decided, you know what? Let's just take a month, relax, recuperate, do physical therapy, and then get back into it. And started my own business pretty quickly after.
It's amazing how certain life events cause you to rethink where you want to go, whether it's an injury or whether it's a major national or international event, whether it's COVID. Many people left their businesses or their jobs during COVID and then decided to create their own business. And it sounds like you had just a moment to settle down and reflect and think, all right, what next? Right?
Yes. I mean, I'm such a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. If you are open to it, what is right will come to you. And even negative experiences, I had, a tough couple of months, like my job wasn't working, my ACL tear. If you let that be a negative thing, that it will be. Absolutely. But if you let it be a positive thing, it can turn into this really self-motivating opportunity where I had time to sit down and focus on starting my own business, what I wanted it to look like, and just the trajectory that I wanted to take over the next few years. And it's a different trajectory than I thought it was going to be, but it's going to be a really positive one.
Now, did you sit down in that moment, did you sit down and sketch business ideas? Like whether to start a franchise business, or did you know that you were going into that political space from a business perspective and fundraising?
Yeah, the two options that I kind of went between a little bit were, did I want to start the one route of fundraising or the other route of maybe going and becoming a lobbyist and doing some government affairs work. And while I still dabble in that a little bit, it's all very interconnected. Fundraising is just kind of what my strong suit is. Nice. And I really like the relationship aspect of it. I like person-to-person connection. It's something that AI and the new technologies coming out will never replace. and building those relationships, whether I want to continue in this realm forever, or I want to go more into business, investor relations. I think it's all, like we were talking about, very interconnected.
Now, I admire people that are in sales, and fundraising for me is all about selling, because it takes a lot of nerve and gumption and strength to operate in that space of selling. And as you mentioned, fundraising. So what kind of got you into that realm, and how have you survived in selling and fundraising? You get a lot of no's.
Yes, you do. You get a lot of no's. You got a lot of people that don't answer, or that, they're not of the same political party of you or whatnot. So that definitely happens quite a bit, but I actually, when I first got out of college, I was trying to figure out my next job, and my dad's a mortgage banker. Both my parents also own their own businesses. And my dad said, you got to get a sales job. So I sold Verizon door to door for about 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And that was way harder than what I'm doing now. I was not very good at that one, but it gave me amazing sales training.
Sure.
And I think that all young people should have some kind of sales job, whether you're, I don't know, even if you're in the service industry, whatnot, just dealing and interacting with people and understanding how they work, because it'll come over tenfold in whatever your career ends up being. It's so
true.
important.
So many people transition out of sales and progress their careers to becoming CEO because they get what it takes to grow an organization and grow a business. And how do you not only have that elevator pitch, but how do you present the organization's product or service very well? And if you've done it in sales, then you know how to make that happen, that communication piece. Yeah,
and it's all, whether you're leading a company, leading a team, starting your own business, and through sales, it's all about person-to-person interaction and understanding those relationships.
Did you consider finance at one point and following your father's footsteps?
I did consider that. That was definitely something I thought about, especially on the investor relations side of things. Right. But I kind of figured that with starting this business, this is kind of where my expertise is right now. We're in such an exciting and volatile state of the political economy in not just America, but the world at the moment. And so this is very much an interesting point to be in. And if I wanted to go further into maybe a more financial side of this, I think that I could. But, I studied politics in college. I took AP American Government my sophomore year of high school. And I said, this is what I want to do with my career. And I never thought of anything else.
That's fantastic, though. So was it about the teacher in that class? What was it about that class that really got you fired up? And
I think that the founding of America is very exciting. A lot of people get very drawn to that, and the political theory of the American founding is very interesting. And so we focused a lot on that. The teacher was also very engaged. It was exciting. My parents have always been a little bit engaged in politics, and was always encouraged to keep up with it. So I decided I really liked it, and that's kind of what I wanted to do. And so I studied political science in college, and French, and just kind of went from there.
Okay. So you studied French as well. Do you speak it then? Parlez-vous français?
Oui, je parle français, bien sûr.
Now, anyone listening will realize that I don't speak any French, but, that's like saying ni hao.
Right, of course. That's okay.
But so you studied both of those in college?
Yes, I did. It was great. I got the opportunity to study abroad in Paris when I was in college. So got out. I went to Clemson, South South Carolina, and very small town, college town. It was the most wonderful place to go to school.
Amazing.
And then got the opportunity to study abroad.
Now, were you there during the Dabo Sweeney days? Was he a coach yet?
I was. Dabo Sweeney and Deshaun Watson.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Great. I love college football. Andy will probably tell me I spend too much time discussing that sometimes with Gas, our producer. But no, I love college football. And you go to a place like Clemson or in Alabama or even a Virginia Tech, right?
Yeah.
It's just so exciting. Indiana this past year was just amazing to watch. Their college football program, absolutely incredible. But that's a whole nother
I know.
show, right?
We've had lots of shakeups. It used to be, Clemson, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. You're always seeing them in the tournament. Right. Now it's a lot more schools are getting into it, which is exciting. Yeah.
Now you were an athlete, though. Speaking of sports.
Yes, I still am. Okay. I own 2 horses that I compete. I actually get cleared to start riding again for my injury on Wednesday. So I'm looking forward to that. Yes, I compete my horses. I do jumpers with them, and they're beautiful animals. I keep them out in Middleburg, Virginia.
Oh, yeah. So how did you get into that sport? And I'll tell you why I'm asking, for those that are listening especially. I had a guest on who is an expert in business, and she mentioned that it's so helpful for young people to be either involved in sports or theater. It teaches them about teamwork. It teaches them how to compete, how to maybe make that sell, how to present themselves, teach them discipline, and so many good qualities that make them successful in their careers and in business. But how did you end up getting started in your sport?
Well, when I was 5 years old, I think in kindergarten, my aunt, I asked her for horseback riding lessons for Christmas or my birthday because, all of my friends were taking horseback riding lessons. We started doing it and I continued on with it. So I've been doing that for, 20 something years at this point. And, it's just a wonderful thing. Horses are very emotionally regulated animals, and it also requires a lot of time, commitment, and funds to do the sport. So it's something that, actually teaches you some financial literacy if you want to be able to afford it. And, I get up at 4:30 every morning, drive out, ride with my horses before work each day.
Really?
When I'm not traveling, I do that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, I know Middleburg is quite an equestrian community.
It is. Yes. It is a very iconic equestrian community. I'm very lucky to have that just about 50 minutes or so from my house.
I think it's down near Foxcroft.
Yes. Right. Yes. Yeah. Right near Foxcroft. Yeah. Yes. Of course. You're a Virginia guy. You know it well.
Great community there. What do you think, though, that gives you, just from not only a motivation perspective? You mentioned getting up at 4:30 in the morning. And I always say that when you talk to a college athlete, their schedules, they don't just show up for the game on a Saturday for college football or during the week for basketball or any other sport. It takes a lot of preparation and planning and commitment. So they're getting up early in the morning. They go to class in college during the day, and then at nighttime they're back working out again, and then they're traveling on the weekend or during the week, depending on their sport. It's a lot of work, but I'm sure there's just so many wonderful lessons you've learned through the years just in competing.
Absolutely. And my sister was actually a D1 athlete as well. She played Division I lacrosse at Duke. She was very good.
One of the top programs in the country.
Yes. She is
both men and women lacrosse.
Absolutely incredible player. And so, sports was always stressed upon us. We were always multi-sport athletes growing up. Being a part of a team and a community, showing up for other people, having dedication, getting outside and being active, it really is a lot of benefits to being on a sport, being a part of a team. My dad especially was always very active in our coaching. And so it just brings a closeness and a sense of community and a sense of responsibility and integrity. And also this sense of work ethic. That's something is absolutely necessary in your career to be successful is work ethic. You can teach anyone any kind of skill if they have a good work ethic. If they're going to show up early, not on time, but early, and they're always going to be there and they're going to stay late and make sure the work gets done, they're going to be invaluable to your business. So that all comes from sports. It really does.
And when you sat down and started thinking of business names, how long did it take to get to the name you decided to choose? Not
too long. I was between a couple of them. But I definitely wanted something equestrian based because that's such a part of who I am. And, you're thinking of a name for your business. It can be literally anything. There's so many ideas under the sun. So I settled on Eques Advisory Group as kind of a little nod to my passion, my hobby.
Now, how did you transition from college and get started in your career in politics? Not everyone that studies political science or even French end up in that profession. Some go to law school, some just end up wherever their careers take them, nonprofits and a variety of different fields. But how did you get your start actually working in politics?
Sure. I mean, law and politics are so intertwined. I, like many other political science students, thought that I would go to law school. And, I kind of knew I wanted to work in politics, but you don't necessarily need a law degree to work in politics. A lot of people think that you want to have a law degree, but if you're not going to practice law, you can study law on your own. I mean, there are ways of studying without just taking a very expensive legal degree route. And I always thought I might go back to working, potentially studying law, but I've just loved the path that I've taken so much. I studied political science, as I've said. And then I went and I interned on the Hill. I had another internship working in a direct mail firm. That was very interesting. Wow. And then very quickly got started working for a Republican state leadership committee. So I started doing state level, nationwide PAC work. And then I worked at the Republican Governors Association for a long time. That was an amazing job, and I loved that.
How'd you end up on the Hill? It's working in Washington, D.C. is just special.
It's really special.
It's just, to be in the center of American power in Washington, D.C. it's a different feel that you can't really describe. And then being in Washington, D.C., for what people might know who've not spent time there, to see the cherry blossoms and the monuments, and you get the energy of government at work is fascinating process, isn't it? It's just a neat experience. 4th of July on the lawn is just incredible.
It really is special. And this year is America's 250th anniversary. So it's a really special place to work and live. But you're really spoiled by the architecture, the cherry blossoms, the art museums, the Smithsonian's. I mean, it's all free, which is just incredible. And it's a really beautiful place. It feels a little bit frozen in time as well. Politics is not always the most savvy when it comes to changing. Sure. We are an industry that has been around for a very long time. And so DC is one of those places that people love to reminisce about, their time on the Hill or whatnot, their time in politics. And it's a pretty transient city, but I'm actually from Baltimore County, Maryland. So I have a lot of friends that are in the area and a lot of friends from Clemson as well that live in DC. It's a very popular place to end up.
Yeah. So how'd you make it to the Hill? Was it hard finding that first internship opportunity and kind of living that dream? And
podcasts are so popular, even monkeys are doing it.
75% of Americans listen to podcasts monthly. That's 210 million people in the United States alone. And yes, podcasts are profitable. Joe Rogan is making $30 million per year. Your content, your knowledge is worth sharing. Don't just dream it, do it. Visit andycostafilms.com/podcast and turn your content into leaks.
Maryland's a relatively blue state, and I wanted to work for a Republican. And so I worked for the only Republican congressman that was there. So I don't think that I don't know how many other applicants there were, but they like to pick people from their home state. So I recommend to everyone that wants to work on the Hill is to reach out to your home state senators and representatives and go from there. And then, branch out. Maybe if you're in a college from a different state, I would go from there. But everyone's contact information, whatnot, staff assistants, it's all public information. So it's very easy to get in contact with people and build those relationships. And people that work on the Hill are so lovely and want to help mentor younger students who want to come work on the Hill as well. So, I recommend people reach out and, everyone's very encouraging in politics.
Now, it's so, for those that might not have spent any time on the Hill, there are underground tunnels between the buildings.
And a train.
There's an underground tram is what I was going to mention as well. Like, it's all true.
Oh, it's all true. It's very cool. Yes. It's very cool walking around. You end up running into a lot of really interesting people. There's also lunches and talks and hearings all the time that you can go see. So it's a wealth of knowledge being on the Hill. And I would commute down from Baltimore. I'd stay at my parents' house and take the MARC train down every day. And it was great. I loved it.
Well, and that's true. The train system in DC is very effective way to get around.
Absolutely.
And they keep expanding. I think the Orange Line goes out to Manassas now. It goes way out there, but it's just an effective way to get in and out of the city. Now, what was it like working at the direct marketing firm?
Yeah, so I was working at a direct mail company, and so they had two arms of the company, one for not-for-profits and then another for political mail. And if you're like me and anybody else, you get lots of political mailers, especially this time of year in Texas with the primaries coming up, I'm sure. And it was very interesting. I mean, you really learn a lot about strategic marketing in the campaign world without, because that's something that's outsourced. Is for the most part, campaigns will outsource a lot of their mail. It was very interesting. It's a little bit of an older way of doing things in the marketing field. Not all industries are doing direct mail anymore, but politics certainly still is.
Now talk about what that looks like. So for someone that doesn't understand what direct mail means,
Yes.
so you're building the flyers, you're building the mailing list. And
flyers, letters,
insight.
etc. Building out mailing list for people's constituents. Either you're trying to encourage people to vote for your constituent against their opposition, or potentially to donate money to them to support them or their cause.
That's pretty amazing. So with your business, what is your biggest focus now? What's your breadth of services and what's your reach? Are you a local business? Are you a national business? Where do you
Nationwide,
operate?
Ronnie.
Okay.
Nationwide. So I have candidates all over the country that I'm working
Wow.
with, including one larger PAC organization that is nationwide, doing races around the country. So I am a nationwide business, up and
Very
coming.
cool.
Just a couple months in, it's a really special feeling.
Yeah.
I have a number of amazing candidates that I'm working for, and all of them are non-incumbent candidates, one of which has been on your podcast before.
Yeah.
So it's very special to see them do so well, to be, see them on news spots, on podcasts. It's really, really incredible to see them thrive. I do a lot of major donor work trying to get, larger donations, but, for some of these campaigns, when you're on the campaign, you're doing everything all the time. It's like its own startup business. So I'm also doing smaller dollar fundraising, PAC fundraising, et cetera, trying to get all of that under one umbrella.
There's a commercial that I think I mentioned a couple of times. It was a few decades ago, but it was a commercial showing a group of people that had just launched a new company. And they're sitting in front of the computer waiting for the first order to come in. And they're thinking, okay, I don't know if this is going to work. It might not be successful. And then the first order comes in. They're just happy. They're jumping up and down. And then the orders keep going. And you see this major jubilation. They're just high-fiving. And then the orders keep growing. And it goes from being happy to sheer panic because they're thinking, how do we fill this? But I can only imagine seeing your clients on television or at an event has that same kind of feel. It's like, okay, we're doing well. We're doing our job. They're getting the visibility. They're having an opportunity to share their message. It must be a great feeling to see that business side, which is getting them in front of people, working out well.
It is. It's such a wonderful feeling. And I've also had a number of folks in the industry, consultants who have recommended me to work with their candidates or recommended me to other consultants. I've had to actually turn down some candidates because I just don't have as much as I'd love to take on everyone. I would love to take on more. And I'm actually partnering with a firm here in Dallas already. So it's really tremendous to have seen my business grow from nothing a few months ago to having so many people wanting to work with me. It's a really good feeling, especially because it's all word of mouth. It's not people putting in, I'm not putting out any ads on the internet or anything like that. It's just through recommendation.
That's an interesting point as well. I'd love to have you talk more about, but the idea of word of mouth. And then the second part of that is building the credibility enough where people trust you that they're willing to make that recommendation. But the word of mouth and not having any marketing is a really big plus for you.
Yeah, and it just goes back to what we talked about with relationship building. It's not just building relationships with your clients, but also building peer-to-peer relationships, as well as with relationships of people who might want to recommend you in the future. And so a lot of the recommendations I've gotten have been through people I've worked with in the past, and I was able to reconnect with them, and they were glad to recommend me. And then sometimes I got recommendations through those people that recommended me. So it's a good feeling. And, that goes back to that work ethic. If you have a good work ethic, whether you had the staff assistant role, which is how I knew some people that I'm working with now, or you were very high up in the company, people want to work with you again if you had a good work ethic and you were nice to work with and you did your job well, or at least tried to do your job as best to your ability. People appreciate that. And it comes along with you later in life.
So I think you've answered this question. I'm just listening to you, and what you just said was incredible from a business Decoded perspective. But I want to ask you this, and it might solicit a slightly different response as well. If you were speaking to Morgan, who is a sophomore at South Carolina, where you went to school, or Clemson.
Clemson, not South Carolina.
Sorry, Clemson. But if you were speaking to the sophomore Morgan, what would you say to her about that journey from being a sophomore, because you're out of the first year, you're kind of settling in, you're not quite near senior yet where you're really being forced to think about what's next. But what would you tell that sophomore you at Clemson on the journey and what to look for and how to work and how to prepare and get ready for building the career that you've built so far?
Yeah, I think that I would say I would recommend, I wish I got another internship in college. I loved the internship I had between my junior and senior year, but I didn't get one between my sophomore and junior year. I think that might have been a good move for me and maybe would have projected me further. Or if I'd gone that summer and maybe worked on a campaign, I think that would have helped me. But overall, I was such a nerd in college. I mean, I had a lot of fun too. And I was in a sorority and on the horseback riding team and whatnot. I had so much fun, but I loved school. I graduated a semester early. I studied very hard. So I think everything kind of happens for a reason. And if you work very hard at everything you do, if it's not hard and you're not progressing forward, then it's probably not worth doing. And everything at school for me was so worth doing because I was willing to work hard at it. I loved my classes. I had great professors. And I was definitely that girl raising her hand at the front of the room, talking the whole class. But, I recommend for all students to do that. Work very hard at your classes. Take things that are interesting to you, not just what you think that you should take. I do wish I had taken some more business and finance classes. I don't have much of at all of an accounting background or anything like that.
And you're right. I remember I started experimenting with other classes and departments. It didn't necessarily go towards my degree, but I wanted to. I took a class on homeopathy, which was just kind of fascinating. And then some other business and accounting classes and quantitative methods. And you're right. It just helps to round out. So I think that would be a good point to those that are still in school and they have some time to kind of add extra courses to their program.
And I'd recommend that all students really just work very hard, study what you really like and what you enjoy and what you want to make a career out of. Yes. I mean, don't study something that you maybe minor in something that you really love but don't want to make a career out of. But, I think, again, I'd tell all young people to get a job in the service industry, try a job in sales, work hard, try for an internship, and never think you're underqualified for something either. I think that a lot of people, they don't want to apply to something because they think they're not qualified. The worst case people can, same with sales, you call that person, the worst thing they can say is no. Ask them for that donation, the money, whatever, to buy your product, whatever you're selling. Put yourself out there because at the end of the day, the worst they can say is no.
So I'll tell you this to our Gen Z and our younger audience members, and I hadn't said this, I don't think, publicly, so I'm looking at my producer, he's thinking, Ronnie, what are you going to say? But when they read the job description for some of these positions, and it says you need 5 years here and 10 years there, ignore it. If you believe that your experience qualifies you to fulfill the work of the position, apply.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying apply for the CEO job on your entry level, but the ideal candidate is not just someone that checks all of the boxes. Like I was saying, if you have a good work ethic, your employer can teach you anything. If you are if you're malleable, you want to work hard and you're, going to ask good questions and you're not going to make the same mistakes, make mistakes, but don't make the same mistake twice. You can do any job.
Well, and here's why I also tell them this, because so many young people today have experience like you in the questioning that started at 5. How do you place that on your resume? You don't list it as a job. You might list it as an extracurricular activity, but it doesn't tell the depth of your experience in that arena. Just kind of managing the horses and managing the process and managing your travel. There's so much more that happens behind the scene. And so many people have those similar kinds of experiences that they're taking for granted because it's just something that they do. Right. They don't think about it in context of how it's helped them to prepare for a position.
Oh, 100%. And I think highlighting all of your responsibilities, the things that you're passionate about, because I also think that people that are very passionate about the things that they enjoy and the things that they like and the things that they want to progress far in, and they have goals and lofty ambitions, that transfers directly into your work. And, eventually it all kind of comes together into this person of who you are and what you bring to the table as an individual. It's not just about, I like horses, I'm a horse girl. It's about how much dedication of time and my own funds and how much hard work I've put in to, not just be able to have the opportunity to get to horseback ride, but, I bought 2 horses for myself.
It's incredible.
That was not something that was given to me.
You purchased those 2 horses?
Yeah. I bought my first horse after riding for 20 years.
I love it.
And I'm so glad my parents never bought me that pony because I would never have worked so hard for it if it was something that was given to me.
So that's the level of hard work and determination that I think a lot of people need to definitely understand. Like, where do you go to even buy the horse and to negotiate and figure out the mechanics of that process? Interesting. It's almost like buying a car.
It is. It is.
It's
Except they live for 30 years.
Right. Interesting. You mentioned AI earlier in the technology piece and
Sure.
and politics not necessarily being as advanced because you're still doing a lot of mailers. What do you see the impact of AI and new technology and social media even in what you're doing?
Oh, social media is huge. I even recently was speaking to this company that I found to be very interesting. They are doing kind of influencer-based marketing for campaigns and for initiatives and get out the vote and have people show up to events and town halls. And you kind of pay a service to have influencers help with that. And I just thought that was really interesting. And things are progressing forward. You're seeing a lot of candidates be very active on social media, especially the big man, and talking face to face on camera, like almost like you're FaceTiming with your audience, is so interesting and very important. And there's a lot of candidates that this is their first time on social media, and that's okay, and they're doing a good job. And it really gives you an inside perspective into the candidate and who they are as a person, into their family. People are much more accessible than they were 20 years ago. It's
interesting to see how it's happening in your industry, but also the other industries, from the use of AI and the use of social media. So a lot of companies are figuring that out. They're hiring the right people, and there's so much movement behind how do you make this more of a science as a part of a business process so that you can either build or grow a product.
Yeah, AI is such a helpful tool. I mean, it's really able to help you organize a lot of lists. But one thing is that AI will never take away the human-to-human connection. Right. It's never going to make phone calls for you or anything like that. But it's great at helping you to generate some, emails or generate a letter to send out or whatnot. It really is helpful in kind of cutting down some of the timing that you need.
What's next for you? What's next for Eques as you start to finish out your first year in business? What's
so I have been working with a firm out of Dallas. They are amazing. It's been really great to be able to partner with them. They've been around for a little longer than Eques has been. And so I've really enjoyed getting to know them, working with them. And so I'm hopeful that, we'll continue to keep partnering together on some things and that we can grow together. And, I'd love to be able to maybe work on a presidential race.
That's a big deal. Okay. Morgan, it's been a pleasure having you. Thank you for making time to join us. I know, again, the flight and the logistics were a little tricky, but
they always are.
They always are. And that, in fact, I'll end on this note. From a business perspective, that ability to adjust to those changes makes a difference between success and not success, right? It's like, how do you pivot when something isn't necessarily at exactly how you identified it, and then you continue to make success out of it? It's just it's an incredible trait to have, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to pivot, you have to adapt, and you have to keep moving forward. Everything is kind of fast-paced in this industry, and so you have to take everything as it comes, and it is what it is. There's no point in dwelling, getting upset, thinking about what could have been. This is what happened. This is the situation, and we have to learn and grow from it.
Yeah. Now, I've mentioned this once before on the program, but I remember hearing an entrepreneur say this about his time in building and growing a company. He said, what I've learned is that either you win or you learn. You don't lose.
Yes.
So even in those moments where it's not perfect, you're learning. And you're learning how to make it better the next go around for whatever either business or product or
There's a good Winston Churchill quote. It's success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts.
Absolutely. Morgan, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. This was so wonderful. I've greatly enjoyed being on the podcast, and I'm so grateful to have my name among some of the most amazing people that you've interviewed. I mean, you really have some great people in business that have been on this podcast, so it's wonderful to be one of them. We want to be a part of your growth and evolution as well. Thank you for joining us on the Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman.
Stay ahead of the curve. Subscribe right now. We will see you at the next episode.